Hello, and welcome to our next online lesson. Today is going to be focused over tone. And even though you may have discussed tone in 1, 2, and 3, 4 honors, we start at square one. Most of the things that you learn here in AP Language are very similar to English 101, 102, but are not going to translate to AP Literature. You have to remember, language and literature are two very different facets. So let's start with square one. What is tone? The tone of the piece is going to reflect the writer or the speaker's attitude toward the subject at hand. The reason I keep bringing up that SOAPs model is because if you don't know the subject at hand, there's no real way for you to discern the speaker or the writer's attitude. It would be impossible to really figure out how they're sounding towards that specific issue. At the same time, in the most simple and basic definition, it's the voice you hear and the feeling that it portrays to you. If you're picking up on anger, you're probably right. This is a gut feeling sort of analysis. Now, of course, to analyze diction, you have to have an appreciation for the diction. You have to analyze word choice in order to analyze the tone. At the same time, you can see there's details, imagery, and language. Take into account, or this should say figurative language, I apologize, but you have to look at all of these other surface elements because sometimes making a comparison might lighten a situation, it might amplify something. You have to really look at the words that are being portrayed to you and how they're being portrayed, how they're being structured. Each of these helps to influence that tone. So why bother analyzing tone? The most direct answer, should you misinterpret tone, you will misinterpret the meaning. This is especially true should we start analyzing satire. You have to pick up on the tone. Now again, this is a gut feeling sort of deal. The only time you quote unquote mess up is if you spend so much time trying to find the perfect word. Remember, 453,000 answers. Make yours work. Find a word that has at least somewhere headed in the direction that you feel like you want to go. Find the evidence to back that up. Then you have the ability to make a meaning that does work. Now, can you still misinterpret the tone and the meaning? Yes, but that is a different realm of issues that we can focus on when we get there. So how do you analyze? Well, start with diction. Look at the words, because if I have a series of words that have harsh meaning, a harsh appearance, you're not going to be picking up on a happy tone, if you will. So find complementary ideas. You have to think of a tone that makes sense with the type of diction. And you can see I gave you an example. If one thing is harsh, how can you have something at the same time being pleasant or joyous? It has to make sense and it has to flow and be complementary. Now, with satire, you only decipher the type of satire and the purpose of that satire if you recognize the tone. Satire is 100% dependent on tone. So if you become tone deaf, if you cannot analyze tone, you are going to struggle once we hit that satire unit. And consequently, should you face a satire prompt on the AP exam, you'll struggle on that prompt as well. Now, go back to Mike Royko. His words, they were not necessarily harsh, but they were poignant. And with that, we saw that tone come through. He was clear, he was concise. At the same time, he blended subjective and subjective words. By doing that, he creates a very clear picture as to what I need to do as a reader, what I need to respond as. So always go back to some of our old foundational pieces. It might help you to understand the main goal. So a word to the wise. Diction and tone are still different. You don't blend them, but make sure that diction and tone are complementary. What this means, depressing. When I talk to you guys sometimes in class, I'll ask you what the words sound like or what the words imply to you. Give me a type of diction. And oftentimes I'll be told, that's a depressing type of diction. Well, depression isn't a type of word. Depression is a feeling. And so sometimes what will happen is someone will take a term that's more directed towards tone and apply it towards diction. Remember, they are two separate entities. They support each other, but we don't blend those terms. The best thing to do on a timed write, the best thing to do whenever you're about to analyze diction or tone, if you say it is a depressing diction, stop and ask yourself, is depression a type of language? or is that a type of feeling? If it is, cross it out, start over. Ask yourself, does this sound like an emotion or an attitude that you have? If it does, like if you are writing, again, and I get to, these are sad words. Well, sad is a feeling that you have. It's an emotion or it's an attitude. So you have to then redirect yourself. Apply that term toward your tone category, not the diction. So sentimental diction or a sentimental tone. You can already see which one stands out as more right than the other. Now go back all over to the David Holeaf chart. And so here's the chart for you. And again, right here, smack dab in the middle, there's my tone. Tone is part of the what category. So if I was to treat this as a pyramid and just a basic how I'm going to structure it. How is the main target? This is me identifying how a type of diction or how a type of tone came to be. I'm going to analyze the type of words, and with that, I can then move to my what. If the type of words are building to a type of tone, like Mike Royko, his type of words built a certain type of tone, and that tone influenced me. That was my what. That was my main there. I wanted to influence the reader, which led me to my why. I want my readers to act. I want a national outcry. So you can see, again, these are a domino impact. You have to talk about the how something comes together to get to the what. Once I analyze the what of a piece, I can then target the why, the main goal. Without that, sometimes we only see maybe one level, maybe two, but I won't get to this exigence, audience, or purpose. And again, occasion, audience, purpose. Those are my three big pieces of the SOAPS model, or the SOAPS model. Those are the three that are causally connected. So that tone handout that you have in your packet, make sure you do check that out. You'll see that there's a gigantic chart, which should look familiar, was on your summer project. If there are words on here you do not know, don't come ask me. Start looking up these words. Start building hints into the words. Start learning dictionary terms. That way you can be clear and concise while you're writing. So there are now two methods of analyzing tone. Both of them should seem somewhat familiar in some way or another. This first one on the left-hand side, you can go through the passage and circle the verbs. Now, this is going to probably be your ideal target when we're on a timed write. You go through a passage with me, it might be anywhere from 1 paragraph to 3 paragraphs, maybe up to a page of writing. That's a lot easier to go through and circle the verbs if it's a paragraph or 2 paragraphs. Every verb you find, you'll start to see by circling all the verbs, a very specific pattern starts to emerge very quickly, and you'll start to see the pattern might start to change halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, which allows you to analyze the tone shift. So the pro on this, it allows you to see a quick pattern. It's really easy to discern when a shift takes place. But the con, if you're skimming, which is a huge issue with misreads, you might skim, and if you have no idea what a verb is, if you've stopped understanding subject and verb agreement, this might be a very difficult pattern for you. On the right-hand side, this is the DIDLSS method, and you can see I've broken it down to diction, images, details, language, sentence structure, and a shift in tone. This is everything about tone broken down into very specific categories. It's helpful when you're working on a long-term assignment, but on a timed write situation, you might feel a little overwhelmed. So again, the pro, it's effective. When you do it correctly, you usually have less mistakes. The con, it takes some time. It does require you to think. I still think the DIDLSS method might be more effective for many of you, but you have to be the one to determine what's going to be best for you. So let's go ahead and look at that DIDLSS method. The very first thing you would analyze is the diction, so more specifically the connotations of the word used. Questions to consider, like just to get yourself to wrap around this idea. Why would I write that someone was murdered rather than killed? Murder has, of course, that bigger impact. It implies motive, it implies actual want. desire to kill someone, whereas the word killed can imply a lot of different things, like they were killed in an accident. It could have been a mistake. The second bullet point, why would I say accident instead of an incident? Well, one implies blame, one implies that it was just kind of an oopsie sort of situation. What words we choose is incredibly important to that tone. Going back to Mike Royko, there are phrases like, he just turned 21, came from a broken family, was in Vietnam only 1 month. This helped to use a connotation that's going to elicit pity. You feel bad for Mike Royko and you kind of connect with him. Moving on, let's look at images. The vivid sensory images, it's as specific as the term implies. Mike Royko, I went with the one everyone hates that I go back to, but Mike Royko squirts the liquid food down his throat. That vivid image is what changed everything in that piece. Suddenly, Leroy Bailey was someone we felt really bad for, because now it's not him having a relationship or him talking or having anything. It's how he eats and just having the ability to eat. Your next one is details. Now this would be facts that are included and facts that are intentionally not there, omitted. So ask yourself, why would he include such graphic visuals? Why couldn't I just say that Leroy Bailey eats liquid foods? Those are pretty basic things if I look at my purpose. Why can I not leave it with just Leroy Bailey wanting to eat solid foods? Why do I even have to mention liquid foods? And why is it that when I put it into context with you in class, when I say he's 26, he can't even watch television, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that, why is it suddenly when the details that are omitted, when I bring them to light, does that change things? Is this implicit and explicit choice of details effective? Your next one is the language, the type of words. And this is just knowing that type of diction, because the type of diction will control your tone. And you can see down here with Mike Royko, I kind of went back to that. Leroy Bailey is a vehicle. My main target is the VA. So the questions become, how do I get people to react? What type of words do I have to do to encourage people to react? And how do I cause a national outcry? How do I get people to actually respond? Sentence structure, this is all your syntax. This is the methods of structure, which we'll go over more in another PowerPoint that's coming up. But you can see syntax includes, or syntax not includes, but syntax can mimic the goal of a text. If I want to show the speed of war, I might have smaller sentences. If I really want to create a long drawn and oppressive feeling, I might pull something more like Poe, where my sentences are very, very long and distant. You can impact the interconnectedness of emotions, feelings, and ideas of an author. Syntax and the way we present things all tend to be dependent on how you structure and how that structure influences the type of words or even just how you sound. And that was the bell, I apologize. Going back to the second bullet point, this interconnected emotions. Think to some of your projects that you have done throughout the course of the years you've been in school. Sometimes you guys will do 5 paragraphs, or sometimes I give you an open-ended prompt. One of the things I'll see is if I give you open-ended prompts and I don't give you any guidance, I can receive a 3-page paper that's 1 paragraph. And it's a light story. It's meant to be funny and has all these puns and these witty sayings. But the bigger that paragraph, the harder it is to connect with you. So sometimes having that unique structure is really critical to help convey your ideas. It helps move and makes ideas cohesive. And the last one, of course, you can suggest a deeper meaning by using longer sentences. Think back to Poe. The longer his sentences are, the usual intent was to try and guide you to a different understanding, highlight something abstract, hint at an ending sometimes. Now, the last piece is called a shift in tone. Topics can focus, and how we feel about a topic can change inside of a paper. Everyone does it. You think about a time dry, you start really confused, really muddled, and then all of a sudden you get it and you know what you want to say. And so your tone at the beginning is very, very detached, maybe even a little bit just neutral, just trying to survive. And then suddenly by that second body paragraph, oh, look, you know what you want to say. Your voice is assertive. You know where you want to go. So even you shift tones while you're naturally writing. So topics change. Our topics can change, and how we feel about them changes with it. Now, good authors are rarely monotone. This does not mean I need you to analyze a shift in tone, but if you see it, talk about it. Show what you know. That's what we need you to do. Show what you know. So think about Mike Royko. And I'm going back to this. I will not say anything that you don't want me to say. But Mike Royko made you feel one way about Leroy Bailey, and he made you feel a very different way about the VA. That is the power of good words. Now, look for keywords. Look for something that's going to stand out to you. Punctuations. You might look for paragraph divisions and changes in the syntax or sentence length. The way to focus on that is to use a slash mark at the end of every sentence. It helps you to see the length of a sentence within a paragraph. And a change in diction. If there's a change in diction, if I'm going from harsh words to suddenly really pleasant sounding words, there is probably a tone shift really immediately. Think back to your summer reading with O'Brien. He went from these really abstract terms, this philosophical idea, to something very concrete. And he does this within pages, within chapters, within paragraphs of each other. It depended on the subject. Now, the handout, again, this is wrapping up the whole video. Much like that diction handout, you are going to be able to use it on a timed write scenario. However, you do not want to get attached to it. You are eventually going to have to take a timed write without that packet there as a safety net. Start to become your own self-advocate. It's not rocket science. It's just a tone. Think about how you're talking. The terms that are on that handout are not exclusive. Just like diction, I gave you 16 types of diction. Mr. Sable's going to give you 30. It's just a matter of what works for the class, and the terms I've given you are the most effective with that test. Now, having said that, I appreciate you guys watching this. I will see you tomorrow for a one-question quiz, and if you watched and you took notes, it'll be the most simple thing of your life. I hope you have a great night and that it's not too late for you, and I'll see you guys later.